Hi, I'm Charles, and you're watching The State of the Republic. We begin this week with foreign affairs. Trump's Syria strike last week is looking increasingly like a diversion, as reports from the area indicate Syrian and Russian forces were moving equipment away from the areas that were hit days in advance. Russia made clear to the Trump administration that certain targets in the country were off limits, and these factors combined indicate that the Russians had foreknowledge of the attacks and that the strikes were a meaningless PR stunt to divert attention from Trump's ongoing and continuing avalanche of scandals. Trump has continued to defer to Russia on foreign policy, as shown recently by interactions between Nikki Haley and others in the administration. Haley appeared on the Sunday talk shows last week to announce further sanctions against Russia. Trump was reportedly enraged by the announcement and began swearing and cursing at the White House staff about the issue. And the White House rapidly rolled back the announcement, with White House officials saying that Haley was misinformed and confused. The new National Security Advisor, John Bolton, also met with the Russian ambassador this week. Meanwhile, on the North Korean front, North Korea recently announced that it will be temporarily suspending missile and nuclear tests ahead of the upcoming summit between North and South Korea and the possible summit between the U.S. and North Korea. The nuclear tests have ceased largely because North Korea's nuclear arsenal has advanced sufficiently that a test would be unnecessary at this point. Meanwhile, the White House leaked and then confirmed that CIA Director and Trump nominee for Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met with North Korean officials over Easter weekend. The leak has been timed to help Pompeo win confirmation to the position of Secretary of State in the Senate, as he faces an increasingly uphill battle as a majority of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee has announced formal opposition to Pompeo, and with recent revelations that he did not serve in the First Gulf War as claimed by many, including his Republican colleagues. In other congressional news, Republican Senate Majority Leader and world's worst turtle, Mitch McConnell, has continued to be an anti-American prick. McConnell has refused to bring a bipartisan bill proposed by Republican Senator Thom Tillis of North Carolina and Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware to protect Special Counsel Robert Mueller from being fired by Trump. He has also refused to consider a new authorization for use of military force for the Syria mission, and is considering making permanent the non-permanent aspects of the Republican tax scam. This week also saw the confirmation of Trump's pick to head up NASA, a Republican congressman with no science background who denies climate change, and only previous link to space was running an Air and Space Museum in Tulsa, Oklahoma, into the ground financially. Congressional Democrats are also facing possible leadership changes, with New York Representative Joe Crowley of Queens, New York, considering a challenge to the current leadership team of Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, and Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn himself recently stated that the Democratic leadership should step down if Democrats do not retake Congress in the upcoming midterm elections this November. Clyburn is the chair of the Democratic Conference and the highest-ranking African-American Democrat in the House. In executive agency news, the Federal Communications Commission is facing some issues this week, as a broadband advisor to Republican FCC chair and somehow even more assholish version of Dinesh D'Souza, Ajit Pai, was indicted this week on federal charges. Pai's tenure as FCC chair has been one marked by slavish obedience to the demands of major corporate Republican interests, whether it be in media, with Sinclair Broadcasting, the right-wing propaganda channel, or with telecommunications, such as AT&T and Verizon. Democratic FCC Commissioner Mignon Clyburn has announced that she will be stepping down this week. She previously developed a reputation as advocate for consumers and the general public, and she will be replaced by another Democrat as dictated by FCC rules. The Trump administration is also seeking to once again attack the poor, by imposing work requirements on public assistance programs. Such requirements would deny needed benefits to the poor and have never been shown to actually increase employment. This past Tuesday was also tax day, but the deadline was extended by a day after a computer failure caused the IRS system to crash and be unable to accept returns online. This crash comes largely as a result of decades of Republican undermining of the IRS, including funding cuts and blatantly false accusations against IRS employees. The Trump administration's Labor Department has also seen significant internal conflict recently between the long-term government employees there and the Trump administration political appointees, a group of anti-labor zealots. In court news, Trump appointed Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch sided with liberals in a case to invalidate a deportation rule for being overly vague. Trump bitched about it on Twitter, as expected. A lower-down federal court also struck down an anti-abortion law signed by Mike Pence when he was governor of Indiana. In state and local level news, Puerto Rico suffered yet another island-wide blackout this week. Puerto Rico's power grid and general recovery effort from the 2 hurricanes that hit the island last week remains in the state of quagmire, as federal support has been rather limited, especially when compared to the recovery efforts in Florida and Texas after their storms. A reminder to everyone, the people of Puerto Rico are American citizens, and we are responsible for them. Meanwhile, in the state of Missouri, Republican Governor Eric Greitens is facing even more criminal charges than previously, with the most recent charges being felony computer data tampering in relation to him allegedly mishandling a donor list for a veterans charity. Greitens is already facing charges of felony invasion of privacy relating to his alleged blackmail of a woman he was having an affair with. Testimony of the woman in question before a Republican-controlled state legislative committee investigating Greitens' scandals alleges activities by Greitens that could easily be prosecuted as sexual assault, unlawful imprisonment, and possibly even rape. Greitens has admitted that he had an affair, but he had denied any wrongdoing and complained about the entire thing being somehow a witch hunt. In electoral news, Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach has been held in contempt of court for voter suppression efforts in 2016 for failing to inform voters that they could vote, as ordered by a court. Voter suppression played a decisive role in giving the Electoral College to Trump in 2016, as the Republican Secretary of State for Wisconsin recently admitted publicly. Republicans are facing increasing trouble for this midterm election cycle, though. Pennsylvania Republican Congressman Charlie Dent announced that he will be resigning this May. Dent was already planning on not seeking re-election, but he has now decided that he won't even stick it out until the end of his current term in January. Meanwhile, Republican Senate hopes have taken some hits recently. Retiring Tennessee Republican Senator Bob Corker has recently been full of praise for the Democrat running to succeed him, former Governor Phil Bredston, calling him a personal friend and saying that he has a 6-point lead over his opponent, while Corker has made extraordinarily lukewarm statements of support for the likely Republican nominee, coked-back right-wing nutjob Marsha Blackburn. Recent polling indicates that Bredston holds a 10-point lead over Blackburn. In Texas, Democratic challenger to Senator Ted Cruz, Beto O'Rourke, is within 3 points of Cruz. Such a showing is a very bad indicator for Cruz, given the Republican tilt of the state and his incumbency advantage. In West Virginia, Republican coal baron and convicted felon Don Blankenship seems poised to potentially win the Republican primary for Senate in the state, to challenge incumbent Democratic Senator and former Governor Joe Manchin. Blankenship was responsible for ignoring federal mine safety regulations and rules, which in turn led to the deaths of 29 coal miners in the Big Branch mine disaster in the mid-2000s. Blankenship was convicted on a felony charge related to that, and Republicans see him as an unelectable nightmare of a candidate in the mold of Roy Moore. Washington Republicans have begun attacking Blankenship in an effort to head off his bid for Senate, while Democrats have begun attacking Blankenship's opponents in hopes that Blankenship will be the unelectable Republican nominee. In Utah, former governor and Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney failed to win the endorsement of the Utah Republican Convention and will now be forced into a primary fight for the nomination. Meanwhile, Facebook has begun reaching out to conservative groups in a bid to defeat possible government regulations of the company. Facebook was previously shown to be rather strongly responsible for much of the fake news that helped elect Trump, showing once again the fundamental irresponsibility of allowing the unaccountable private power that is a hallmark of our current greedy and corrupt system. Next, we turn to Trump's continuing legal woes. The Democratic National Committee has filed a lawsuit against WikiLeaks, the Trump campaign, and Russia for conspiring to hurt Hillary Clinton's electoral chances in the 2016 election. The value of such a suit lies primarily in the discovery process and the ability to subpoena documents and depose people involved. Trump lawyer, fixer, and incompetent version of Saul Goodman, Michael Cohen, revealed recently that his third client was Fox News host Sean Hannity. Hannity has been a loyal propagandist for Trump, while failing to disclose his rather close ties to Trump's own attorney and fixer. Fox News has predictably failed to take any action about this egregious breach of traditional journalistic standards. Trump's team is now increasingly concerned about the possibility of Cohen turning state's evidence, and Trump has predictably once again tweeted about it. Trump also added former New York mayor, former U.S. attorney, and Trump surrogate Rudy Giuliani to his legal team. Giuliani has a rather strange past with Trump, as shown by this video.
You know, you're really beautiful. And a woman that looks like that has to have her own special scent.
Oh, thank you. Maybe you could tell me what you think of this scent.
I like that.
This may be the best of all. Oh, you dirty boy, you. Oh. Donald, I thought you were a gentleman.
You can't say I didn't try.
Giuliani himself is likely in serious legal trouble, thanks to his ties to foreign governments and his conspiracy with pro-Trump FBI agents in the New York FBI field office to leak information damaging to Hillary Clinton. Former FBI Director James Comey's book was released this week, and Trump and the Republicans have once again begun a full-court press to discredit Comey. Republicans in Congress demanded the memos Comey wrote about Trump's obstruction of justice, and the DOJ turned them over, and the memos were then rapidly leaked to the press by the Republicans. This time, Republicans seem to have bought too much into their own propaganda and bullshit, as the memos largely validated Comey's previous statements on the record and actually worsened the outlook for the Trump administration. Some Republicans have also threatened to impeach Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who is overseeing the Mueller investigation, if he does not protect Trump from Mueller. This level of obstruction of justice is unprecedented in American history, and further underscores the importance of Democrats retaking Congress this November, making a full sweep of the corrupt and traitorous Republicans in Congress. Finally this week, we close with news of yet another mass shooting, this one at a Waffle House in Tennessee. Reports indicate that the shooter was able to wound 3 and kill 4 before an unarmed customer was able to wrestle the rifle away while he was reloading, after which the shooter reportedly fled the scene. As of this taping, the shooter is still at large and believed to be a danger to himself and others, as he reportedly has 2 other firearms. This most recent shooting further underscores the need for gun reform now. It is time for America to stop listening to the NRA gun nut fanatics and get some meaningful gun reform to address the epidemic of gun violence in this country. That does it for this week's news. Thank you for watching the program. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more interesting content.